When you don't know yourself and you don't know your triggers, you don't know your joy, I think it's impossible to get somebody else to see that for you. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that it's possible for you, for us, to convince someone else to see what we see in them, in ourselves. This is, of course, in reference to when the universe brings people into your life who get you without you having to ask them to. And that's a beautiful thing, but that's not the point. Because the point is, when you're wanting love and you're wanting another person to give you that love, if you can't supply it for yourself, or if they can't supply it for themselves, there's no point. Because they simply cannot understand. They simply cannot be convinced, is what I'm saying. And you don't have to chase them, because they will never be convinced. And you will spend your life wishing and hoping for the day that they finally understand the million ways that you've explained the same thing to them. You'll finally think that you've figured it out, that there's a new way of explaining it, and you explain it to them and they still don't understand. And I don't know if it's not understanding, as in intentionally not understanding, or if it is literally an inability to understand. It's not that they can and they want to and they will eventually. It's that they can't and they won't until something within you changes that shows them that you are no longer interested in convincing them of your worth, of your value, of yourself. And I have to say, it hurts so bad, because all you want is to be understood. All people want is to be understood. To be given grace and to be given love unconditionally. To know that in the space of the person that they wish to understand them, that person can hold them and tell them that it's going to be okay. But when you're dealing with people who can't do that, what do you do? Now, I think that this relationship is most prevalently present in relationships between parents and children. And I think that the scary thing is, what do I do when my parent doesn't understand me, can't understand me, won't understand me, and has so much of their own baggage that they literally cannot see through to you, the child, whom has 100% of the expectation for that parent to have already moved through their baggage and can, parent them and hold them in a way that requires seeing them without having the child need to explain who they are or what's important to them or what hurts them. I was talking to a friend recently and we were saying how about her parents' reactions to the things that she says and her concerns and her validness, like, as a human. And I was telling her that, and it was totally, like, ringing true in my dynamic with my parents, that we, as children, expect and need, as little infants or just, children, we need our parents to understand who we are at a level that doesn't necessarily require the ins and outs of our personality, but requires the ins and outs of emotional completeness and oneness and maturity, where we as the children are always going to be, in an ideal world, the more emotionally immature ones than our parents. But then when the child themselves becomes more emotionally mature than the parents, they've realized that that one source of love and contentment and holding and being held is no longer something to be trusted, is no longer something to be comfortable with, because they know that they are the ones caring for the emotional well-being of their parents, when it should and always should be the other way around. And it is, in my personal opinion, completely unfair to children to expect them to be stronger than, smarter than, whatever, than their parents, because no child should have to feel like they are the one parenting their caregiver, their source of love, their source of unconditional acceptance and love. When I, as the child, realized or come to the conclusions that nothing that I say to my parents can be truly understood in my mind because of their limitations, it makes me feel as though there's something wrong with me, something wrong with the relationship, something wrong. And I can't tell you or really grasp onto that feeling of hopelessness and describe just how alone it makes a child feel. Just how unsupported and unstable and on unsteady ground that child feels. Because what that means is that I am now my sole emotional caregiver. I am now the only one taking care of me, but then I'm also taking care of two other people or more, depending on your family dynamic, in order to keep peace, in order to keep harmony, equilibrium, and emotional balance. And to put that on a developing mind, can you see kind of where I'm going here? It just isn't fair. It just isn't right. It doesn't feel good. And what I want you to take away from this is that for you as a child, it is okay for you to not have your emotions figured out. It is okay for you to allow your parents to fly off the handle and to be who they are, because at the end of the day, they are still children, and they are still in pain, and they are still carrying the weight that they took from their relationship with their parents. And it's much easier as an adult to understand and kind of rationalize how that would be the case, and then forgive them and accept them from there. But when you're a child, meaning under 18, honestly, I mean, it doesn't really get it gets better. It's more like it doesn't the weight of that realization doesn't leave you. However, to a child, someone under the age of 18, it's much more difficult to understand that this person that's supposed to be caring for you and this person that's supposed to be more emotionally mature than you is not. That concept, it's like, to me, it felt like the end of the world. To me, it was like, what are we doing? You know, where do I go from here? How do I even navigate this? And trust me, you will learn to navigate it. But what that teaches a child is that their emotions are not as important as the parents' emotions. And that can lead to a lot of suppression, that can lead to depression, that can lead to mental illness in a variety of ways, in which you understand as a growing and developing individual that your needs are not as important as the needs of someone else. And, you know, that can translate into people pleasing, but the greater scheme of this is the idea that you as a child are not getting the care and the space to develop into your own emotionally mature individual, free from the paradigm of your parents' emotional baggage from the past. Please be kind to yourself. Please know how smart and strong and beautiful and loving and cared for you are. Please know that they don't need to understand you. They don't need to understand you in order for you to be understood, in order for you to be whole, in order for you to be held. They don't need to know how to do that for you to do that for yourself. And I implore you to go seek ways in which you can feel more complete as an emotional being, aside from your parents, or aside from the society that tells you you should be a certain way or feel your feelings a certain way. I seriously, believe me when I say that you will get to the point where you can emotionally regulate yourself, and you will get to the point where it doesn't feel like the end of the world when you feel yourself having to convince your parents of your worth and your value and the need for you to be seen. Because no child should have to deal with that, yet here we are, right? And it is up to us as the governors of ourselves and our bodies to transform that mutilated emotional energy and turn it into something that serves us, and turn it into something that is beautiful for our emotional landscape and also the emotional landscape of others. I hope more than anything else that you are able to take this information and give it to the people who need it the most, because it's people like us and people like emotionally mature children turned adults that become spokespeople for those who don't see that in the moment. And if you don't see this, it is there. It will always be there for you to come back to, and it will always be there for you to be able to tap into, and for you to be able to understand that it is not your fault, and you are not bad, and you are not anything except for a beautiful, loving, held individual. And I love you, and the universe loves you, and the birds and the bees, they love you. Just remember that it isn't your responsibility to convince other people of your worth. You are already worthy, and you are already loved, and you are already valuable. I love you. Bye.